We also heard another major piece of breaking news from that news conference. The Premier of Quebec, François Legault, announcing a Canadian first, that the province is looking to implement a special tax on the unvaccinated unless they have a medical exemption. For more on this breaking news, the CBC's Hilary Johnstone is on the story live from Ottawa. So Hilary, this is certainly, the news about Dr. Horacio Arruda, that was big news, and why it's happening, and we'll get into that in a second, but kind of slid in there in that announcement was this plan, again, a Canadian first. No other jurisdiction in this country has gone this way, but the Premier talking about the burden that the unvaccinated are putting on the healthcare system. While it's only 10% of the population right now, it's 50% of the hospitalizations, and the burden that is having with people, healthcare workers either being sick or off, that they are at a breaking point. And so this tax is being looked at, and it will be significant. We don't know a specific amount at this point, but we do know that it'll be more than $100.
That's right. So that he was asked about that, right? Both the Premier and then also the health minister. But, what sort of number are we looking at? They said that they hadn't arrived at a figure yet, but they said that in their mind, $50 or $100, that wasn't significant, and they wanted this to be significant. And along with talking about the burden that people who have not been vaccinated are placing on the healthcare system, on ICUs, they also spoke about the frustration that vaccinated Quebecers are feeling right now. They're once again under a curfew. Schools are closed. There are restrictions on businesses once again, both on private gatherings, indoors and outdoors. So that was the other thing that he spoke about. Now, how is this going to work? How are they going to find these Quebecers who are not vaccinated and actually tax them? He referred to this as a healthcare contribution tax. He said that this wasn't necessarily a pay for service or a fee for service. This wasn't something that Quebecers who are not vaccinated are going to be charged if they show up at a hospital. He said that this would be for everyone who is not vaccinated. And if they do not go and do so, go at least and get their first shot in the coming weeks. But how you find these people, how you categorize this, how much you charge them, how this all works, if it's legal, there are still a lot of questions here that have not been answered. I think it's going to be interesting, Andrew, to see how other provinces react to this. Of course, we've heard recently from that federal health minister, Jean-Yves Duclos, that he thought, in his opinion, that provinces might start to go harder, target those unvaccinated people even more in the coming weeks and months. This might be Quebec's answer to that. So it's going to be interesting to see what other health ministers and other provinces and other premiers say when they are undoubtedly going to be asked about this in the coming weeks when they have updates as well. But what we know is that this is some sort of healthcare contribution that Quebec is looking at for those who are unvaccinated at a time when the healthcare system is under incredible strain. More than 2,700 people in hospital in Quebec right now with COVID, 255 people in the ICU, 62 new deaths announced today as well. That's the most deaths that we've seen in about a year now, since late January of 2021. So there's a lot here for people to be considering. Mm-hmm. Oh, and actually, you know what? I think we also have a clip here of François Legault that I want to play. He was speaking a little bit more about this, about how this is going to work when he was asked about this. How are you going to find these people? Here's what he said.
If you look at what's happening in other countries or other states, everybody is trying to find a solution, a question of equity, because right now, these people, they put a very important burden on our healthcare network. And I think it's normal that the majority of the population is asking that there be a consequence.
So that question that he's talking about, Quebecers, that they want there to be some sort of consequence, of course, Andrew, that's not just something that Quebec is dealing with right now, but of course, provinces and territories right across this country. Mm-hmm.
This is definitely new territory, though, and as you say, Hilary, lots of very interesting and important questions about this new tax, how it'll work, how it will be implemented. But the other big news, of course, which we knew about before going into the news conference, was this resignation. Our colleague, the CBC's Stephanie Levitt, has described it as an abrupt resignation by Dr. Horacio Arruda, who's been the face of public health in Quebec for 22 months. He said, the Premier said he gave everything he had over the last 22 months. and he's going to take a few weeks off. He's going to continue to help us. But, being in front of the media every day explaining this pandemic to Quebecers is not easy for anyone. And there are benefits of having a new person. We learned who that new person is.
We did, and he is Dr. Luc Boileau, who was the head of INES, which is Quebec's government healthcare institute, which works to promote excellence within that healthcare sector. So not a stranger to public health for sure, but he's been being described rather as the interim director of public health in Quebec. As you were pointing out there, Dr. Arruda, according to the Premier, is going to have a couple of weeks off, well-deserved, and then the hope there, it sounds like, is that he will continue to work with the government as this pandemic continues to unfold. So I think there's probably still a few questions remaining there as well about exactly what is going on here. But as you say, it was what we were all waiting for today. It was what we were waiting for more details on what was going on there. And then the news that Dr. Luc Boileau is going to step into that interim role. And then he got right to it. He was asked about schools. Of course, the hope is that students in Quebec go back to school next Monday on January 17th. Dr. Boileau said that he was going to take some time today, take a few hours to look at all the data to see whether or not it's going to be safe to do so. Of course, we also know that they're going to be considering whether or not to lift that curfew that's in place in the province as well. So lots of decisions coming Dr. Boileau's way.
All right, Hilary, thank you. That is the CBC's Hilary Johnstone live in Ottawa.